Does that look like a belly button? Or does that look like something else? Belly button, she said. Okay, let's find a video. I'm feeling like doing a tufting video today. It's been a while since I've done any tufting. I really enjoy doing it. I want to know if there's anything that I'm doing different than someone else. I want to see how other people do it. I'm curious. There we go. Intro to diamond tufting by the funky little chair. Very cool. Let's get into the video. First, we want to support the creators of the video. Let's go ahead and give it a like. Just like this video, if you could give us a like, comment for anything you have questions for, if you want to see anything changed, and also be sure to subscribe and hit that little dingy bell. That way, every time we post a video, you'll get notified. Learn as much as you can about upholstery.
Today we are talking about one of my very favorite styles to teach, which is diamond tufting.
One of my favorite styles as well.
Or deep button tufting. Now, though you'll often hear people use diamond tufting to describe anything that has a button set into it, well, we're really...
Check out this chair in the back. Going away from diamond tufting for a little bit. But doing the stripes on that horizontally, really cool look. I like that.
What we're talking about is this distinctive process where the padding is cleared and the button pulls down nice and deep, which is going to create that distinctive pattern of folds in our fabric.
There's a few different ways to do diamond tufting. A lot of times people will actually stitch the these are folds in this one here. So everything is mathematically measured out. The foam's pre-cut. The material's patterned out. The buttons are all pressed with the same material. Then through the action of pulling the buttons down into the foam, as we'll probably see in this video, it creates folds. So these folds are all placed on purpose. Sometimes they'll be stitched in place. I think it's cheating personally, but I think that makes it a lot easier. But I think this is a good way to be doing diamond tufting. Really depends on what you're doing it for.
Tufting is universally recognized as a very skilled and a very custom process. Number two, I like to teach it because it's not quite as hard as it looks, which is not to say that it's easy.
Definitely not easy, but I would say the hardest part is your setup. So measuring the distance of the difference between the distance between the holes on the foam and the distance between the fabric traveling over the foam from one button to the next. Once you get that figured out, you just repeat it over and over, copy the same thing, and then really every time you do it, once you get used to the material that you're doing the tufting with, you just repeat the process over and over.
But even a relative beginner can achieve a surprising amount of success if what we're tufting into is a relatively straightforward layout and a forgiving fabric.
I like how she mentions a forgiving fabric.
And the first thing I have to decide is exactly how big I want my diamonds to be, which I have mine marked out. I'm just going to start by laying out button molds to see visually what I think looks good. And as long as I'm just using those molds, I can push them around to my heart's content.
That's a good way to do it. I like that. So she's placing those down on the wood to get a visualization of how big the diamonds are going to be.
But we have opted to have a taller diamond, and this distance here is about half of the distance here. So visually, that's going to give us a nice balance.
If you get too small on the sides here, so how she was saying the halfway point, you want to match on that side, you don't have the structure of the foam in such a small area like that, and you can end up going over and just crushing the foam, and it ends up looking really bad. I learned that the hard way. Make sure you have enough space so that there's plenty of foam there to hold up your fabric so it can kind of go over the foam smoothly without flattening it out.
So we ended up with a 4.5-inch wide diamond.
Okay.
And a 6.25-inch tall diamond. So that's going to fill our space nicely. And once I have that math...
If you prep the material and do like a test diamond beforehand, so for example, just cutting a diamond in the shape that you want, then pulling the material over to figure out where your stretch bias is, like she was talking about earlier, you can do squares, you can do diamonds, you can really go however shape you want, as long as you prep for it properly.
Laid out very carefully to make sure that I was straight and I was square. My tufting, my end result is only going to be as tidy as my
it's all in the preparation.
Is.
Yep. Yeah,
so once I have this same math needs to be transferred to a piece of foam. We're going to use 2-inch, which is, I would say, a functional minimum for tufting. In order to create enough depth to create our folds, 2 to 3 inches of foam is what we're going to want to work with.
Yeah, I typically use 3 inches.
So I'm going to cut a piece of foam, 2 inches thick, 1/2 inch bigger than my board, with this exact same layout accurately marked on there. But I do want to show you the tool that I use for cutting the foam layer, which is this beautiful little hole saw. And you can see on here it's a number 22, which correlates to the...
So I have one, but it has actually a slot down the side. So after you're done drilling the holes, they can all get the pieces of foam can all get kind of crammed in there. So you can actually take a screwdriver or something long and pointing down that channel on the side and push all the foam out.
Just goes right into our cordless drill, and then with a spray of silicone.
Oh, okay. You can see there's a little hole or a slot or something. Spray silicone. I use the same thing. Good. Okay, so what she did was marked all the foam, cut out all the holes where the intersections were on her grid, like she drew on the wood. Then cut all the foam out of the holes. Then looks like she covered the whole thing in like batting or Dacron. I have realized cutting a little slit in the side here, it works well for cloth because it gives easily. If you're doing this with leather, I've noticed it's easier to get it to look nice if you don't cut that slit in. Then you have, because you're going to have after you make the fold, you'll have a little bit of extra material. Fold that outwards as you go up the panel so they're folded out. Then pull that all as one piece. Pull the folds, then find the centers of where you're stapling it and staple that all to the back without cutting those. With leather, I'm saying. If you do that, you end up with a much smoother finished product without getting the leather bunching up in here. Because I've had the problem where the foam, after getting the leather into that channel, you pull on it and it kind of opens up that cut too far and it just looks funny and there's wrinkles in there. But with pliable fabric, I think this is fine.
So how much fabric do we need for our tufted sampler? I want to show you how we're going to figure that out. I'm going to start as if this were a simple slip seam.
Okay, so I think she's going to pull that over, measure it, and then feed the tape measure into each button to figure out the distance.
Now I usually add on at least 2 inches per side just for my handle to pull on. So 27 plus 2 plus 2 gives me 31 if this sample was not tufted.
Oh, okay. I was wondering where the plus 2 came from. That was just for her.
But because it is tufted, I have to add in for each of those buttons. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to find my long row.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to multiply that times the depth of my foam. So 5 times 2 gives me 10 inches that I need to add on from 31 all the way up to 41. My piece is going to be 40.
Is she not going to measure the back of the material out? I've always done way more measuring and math when I'm doing tufting because I want every single pleat to look the same. With fabric, you can go, because once you make a hole with the needle in fabric, that hole can be repositioned. Doing it with leather, which I've done most of my tufting in my experience in leather, you got one shot. So everything needs to be perfect. You need to know where that needle needs to land on every button.
You want to use something that's really friendly, and this is going to be, I dug through our remnants and I came up with this, which I liked for 2 reasons. Number one, it's going to be...
This isn't the same fabric that was in the thumbnail, was it? Was that thumbnail a lie? Were we clickbaited?
We're not going to get a puncture wound from that needle like we would with, say, a chintz or a vinyl or a leather. Okay, so this is a good thing, which means we can move our buttons almost indefinitely. We can reposition to our heart's content. But I want to mark a center, and I want to mark my top row, which has 4 buttons, and the way I came up with the distance between those again is my board is marked 4.5 inches apart.
Cool camera.
And I have a 2-inch foam. So these should be 6.5 inches apart.
Okay, I guess that's a decent way to do it.
And it's very important that my first row be very straight and very even.
My question is, though, if she knows that's the measurement through the whole thing, why not measure that down here, and then put another mark there, up in here, and another mark there, so that she knows exactly where every single button lands. That way, there won't be one button that's too tight, one button that's too loose. I would have liked to see that. She already went through the work of figuring out one row. Why not find out multiple rows? Why not find out the entire thing? Because then you just follow exactly where the buttons go after you do the initial calculations. And then you end up with a perfectly tufted pattern and there's no guessing.
So once I have my button threaded, I'm going to flip this back so I can see where I had one of those first buttons marked.
Okay.
And just carefully find my way through there and through my corresponding hole in the board. I just have to make sure that I hit those points and that I pull this all the way in to my board. And can you already see, it looks like a little belly button.
Does that look like a belly button? Or does that look like something else?
Pleating in there. It's not going to pleat by itself, but the depth of that foam is the reason that we get a tuft. I'm just going to do the faster thing and I'm going to staple this into place.
Okay. Oh, I do that too. I like how she did that. So what she did, pull the twine tight, put a few staples in it, fold it over, staple it again, and that puts a perfect crease. That creases the thread so it can't pull out from under those staples. I like that.
I like it a lot.
This is what I was saying about after...
And the corresponding hole in my board.
Once you get this all set up, all you do is find that mark every time on the back, correspond it with the appropriate hole on the board through the foam, then it should work.
And take that through to the back. Grab my twines,
Okay, yeah,
pull my fabric in.
It doesn't look right until you have all 4 buttons.
And anchor it down.
Holding all 4 corners of a diamond.
I'm going to put my next 2 buttons in, and then we will talk about row number 2.
Whoa, there's some music.
Default iMovie song.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
If this music doesn't get you jazzed, I don't know what will. Woo!
I like to have that first row and our center marked just to make sure that we do in fact know at this point we're nice and even.
It's kind of like putting a button shirt on. If you don't start at the right point, they're going to be off. And when you button up your shirt, the whole thing's going to be at an angle. So you have to make sure the corresponding hole goes to the corresponding button, goes to the right place in the fabric, so everything's lined up.
And why we charge this when we do it by the button, because each individual button has to be set by hand.
Charges for tufting by the button. I didn't know that was a thing. That's pretty
I
cool.
just tend to use my finger. I tend to tell students, don't judge it too much until you get into like row 3. Nothing's going to look perfect yet.
But like I said, if you planned at the beginning and knew where each button needed to go in your fabric, and you worked that through the entire panel, every single one would be the same, and you wouldn't have to be going by feel.
And then down I go through where I want my button to be.
Your needle should only pass through 1 layer of fabric. Duh.
So now is where I can start to use the grain of my fabric. This really should be, perfect diamond tufting is like a math problem, right? I should be able to follow my grain straight over from here.
See, exactly. It's a math problem. So this pattern can be figured out into the back of the fabric, like I keep mentioning, so that your math problem is solved and there's no guessing involved. That's how it should be done.
And
That's
straight down from the center of this diamond, and that should
That's how I
be
would like
my
you to do
perfect
it.
spot. That should be a pretty good spot for our button. But if it wasn't the perfect spot, what's nice is that I can pull that button out and I can just refold it.
A lot less
Embrace
guessing
the
if you
idea
measure,
that
though.
this is not going to be a fast process. It can actually be kind of meditative.
It's a faster process if you measure. Not faster at the beginning, but it's faster once you actually start tufting.
Noticing, this can actually put a lot of wear and tear on your pinky because as we're pulling, that thread is really hitting right on that little finger.
I tend to wrap around my index finger and pull, or wrap around a couple fingers and pull. Especially doing it with leather, sometimes you need a denser foam to really get a nice tall crest on the peak of your buttons, on the peaks of your diamonds. So I've actually made a little like leather wrap that I can put around my fingers so that the thread doesn't cut into my hand.
All right, off to the other side, wrestling in our folds.
Yeah.
There's our 2 rows in. We're just going to be leaving our edges for now and focusing on our diamond pattern. So the next row is quite exciting because we finally are going to see our full diamond patterns. And I want to point out here, all my folds are folded down.
Yep.
So I don't have a button right on that center line this time.
So the way she's doing it, I would have done 1 button, make sure the crest is smooth, peaking in the center. The crest is smooth from the top of the button to the bottom of the button, from the left to the right of the button with no dips in the middle or anything like that. Marked where those buttons went, taken the whole thing apart, separated it, then copied that whole pattern onto the back with those dimensions. That would have made this whole process really easy. Then you just go through, put all the buttons in, pull them tight, do your folds. No guessing.
So now I don't have a line to match.
You would have a line to match if you did it my way.
Now if I was doing like a whole restaurant or a bunch of upholstered walls, if I was doing anything that had more than a couple, if I just do a little sample board, it makes sense for me to come in here and just figure out each button as I go. But if I got this perfect and I took it apart, I could mathematically measure where
There we go. Okay. So the reason she's not doing that is because this is just a small little test piece. So she's just kind of guessing. Like she said, if she was doing booths at a restaurant, which I did, or I used a lot of the same foam, a lot of the same diamond sizes. So I figured this out once. I could test it with each different material I used. Then that gave me my measurements I needed to use. She's not doing it here just because it's a little board. Okay, that makes sense. She redeemed herself a little bit.
Here goes my button in here, and I'm looking for my tension here should be enough that this is snug, but I'm not pulling a dent into my tufting. And there is a relatively small sweet spot between too loose and too tight, and the only way to really figure it out. But ooh, isn't that going to be satisfying?
Ooh, isn't that satisfying?
You can't be, I would say, too dainty with the fabric. You can't be afraid to really manipulate it around.
Sometimes, especially with vinyl or leather, if you need a fold where it needs to go, it's okay to grab that fold and pull it around. If a button comes loose now, this is a great time for it to happen because you can always fix it. Especially if you know if that's where the button needs to go, because then the hole will be marked by where the needle went through the material. But yeah, I grab them, I push the foam down, I make the fold, roll it to where it needs to go. Then, yeah, you can be pretty rough with it.
We're not going to wreck it, and if we wreck it, we'd rather wreck it while we're working on it than find out later.
Yep. This process just continues on until you have all the buttons done. It's the same thing repeated over and over. I think the next important part is going to be when she starts doing the folds on the side into those channels she cut and wrapping the material around, as well as doing a corner. So let's check those parts out.
All right, all our buttons are in, and this is where we are at. That takes care of our...
Not bad. This one here, I don't know if it's pulled too tight left to right, but it seems like there's a little bit more tension there. This fold looks like it needs to be brought down a little bit to be even with the other side. Same with this one here. It may be the angle she's holding it. But not bad. Not bad for guessing.
We still have to work in all our edges. I'm going to start up on my top And what I like to do, especially when I can see that grain, so I have a pretty good indication of where my middle's going to come in.
She's going to want to pull this to the point where it matches the height of these here, so it continues off the edge. So right now, I think she may have to pull that a little bit more and feed some of that fabric into that channel that's cut right here, just to make it match the rest of it.
And tension-wise, kind of like we looked at the diamonds, I don't want to yank so hard that I'm going to threaten to pull out my fold.
She's finding the center of each diamond before worrying about that excess in the middle. Then whatever excess she has in between each of these parts she's pulling, she's just going to shove into that channel.
We're sort of just tugging on these and making sure that they're going to work.
Also, if you're doing this in a material that doesn't have that pattern, you're not going to be able to look down to make sure it's straight. So on leather, vinyl, some fabrics, I guess the fabrics, you can see the way the threads are in there. But I wouldn't rely on this technique if you don't have a solid pattern like this.
And that looks pretty straight. I'm looking up here and my tension looks even. I've seen different philosophies in how to fold this in. Some people like to pull the center and actually pull 2 pleats in.
I don't like doing 2
I really
pleats.
prefer to try to get one big pleat.
Okay, so what I do from the center, everything on the right side, fold out. Everything on the left side, fold out to the left. So you have the center here, and the folds are going toward the end. I think it looks really nice.
I'm going to work with both my layers a little bit. And I want to see that this fold is coming straight up from my button. And get in there and wrestle it around a little bit.
That looks fine. See here, I would have done from this side over, folded this way, the opposite way. She has the fold with the top pointing this way, which is what I would do on the other side. I mean, that's really nitpicky, but for this, it doesn't matter. For most things, it probably won't matter.
These ones look okay, but my first staple over here now looks a little bit loose. So I'm going to pop that out
pull that,
and just
reset
retension it.
She's got the top done. She's going to be getting to the corner soon. I want to see what she does with
roughed in. I'm not going to do anything with the corners yet because that's really the last place.
That's what I want to see.
I want to go. So I'm just done to about here.
That's all right.
And I say done with like air quotes because there's still a chance that I may rework some of that when I get in here and see what my corner wants to do.
Now just the corners.
What I'm going to do on this is I'm going to finish up my side. I'm going to see if I can get to...
Also, I can confirm now that the thumbnail of this video was in fact clickbait and she did not use the same fabric.
Like one tidy straight pleat up here, which is going to be a nice match for my pleats on top.
Yep.
Of course, there's all different kind of ways that you can.
And then she's doing the same thing where you want the crest to go over the corner smooth, just like all the other tops of the diamonds, so that everything looks uniform and nice when you're done.
And finish that. But let's try this. So I'm smoothing out from my pleat to my corner.
Okay. It looks like right here she has a little bit of a bulge there. I bet she's going to have to pull those staples out and pull that material down to reset that.
Reposition any staples if I need to
Wow,
smooth
look at
that
that
tension in. And I like, let me show you what I like on my corners. I like to do like a little corner pleat in the back. That's just going to help me sort of control. If I just fold this down, that's doing whatever it wants. It has to go somewhere. So if I fold that part first.
Okay, that's cool.
Just get one staple in there.
And now she
Maybe
can
we'll
fold
even
that whole
retrim
thing
that
over
to keep
that
it tidy. Then I should have an easier time managing this.
Roll that out a little bit.
But every fabric's going to behave a little bit differently.
All right, very cool. Overall, the only problem I had with the whole video was the amount of guessing she used when fitting the fabric over the diamonds. So where she could have done one diamond, measured it out, copied that for the entire thing. As she said in the video, though, she kind of reclaimed herself by...
Redeemed.
Did I say reclaimed?
Yeah.
Oh. No wonder I'm like stuttering. So she really redeemed herself when she mentioned that that's what she would do when she's doing like large pieces or a lot of production. So she didn't do it in this case just because she was doing a small little panel. Overall, I think her Upholstery University grade will be a B. Let's give her a B+. She did a good job. There was a few things I would have liked to see changed. Depending on the material you use, there's a few things I would like to see different, like those channels I talked about earlier on the sides. But overall, good job. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope this was helpful. I hope this video from the Funky Little Chair was helpful. Go check out more of their videos. This was a great tutorial. I hope my input was helpful on this. I have had quite a bit of experience with diamond tufting myself, so my little insights here and there hopefully were helpful. Again, if you guys can like, comment, and subscribe to this video, hit the little notification bell, follow us on Instagram, Facebook. I think we're going to do a Discord chat. Twitter. Yeah, I think all of those. Hit that bells to make sure you see our anytime we post a video. We're going to be posting a lot of these kind of review videos of other people's how-to videos. We're going to be reviewing car interiors. We're going to be reviewing all kinds of stuff. And hopefully soon I'll get into my own projects. We have a chair planned, a little wingback chair we plan on doing. So there's a lot of cool stuff that's going to be coming from Upholstery University. See you next time. Because it's not marked on the back of her material, she's finding the center of each diamond before